The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. It was cream-colored, expensive paper, the kind my mother uses for dinner party invitations. But this wasn't an invitation. When I finally slid my finger under the seal, the single page inside made my stomach drop. Rent adjustment notice. Effective April 1st, monthly rent increases from $1,400 to $3,200. Below that, in my father's handwriting, "We know you can afford it, sweetie. Family takes care of family." I was paying rent to live in the garage apartment behind my parents' house in Portland. The same garage apartment I'd moved into at 23 to save money while building my career. I was now 29, a senior data analyst at a tech firm, pulling in $140,000 a year. And my parents just raised my rent by $1,800 overnight. Not because the market changed, not because of property taxes, but because my little sister Brittany needed help with her mortgage. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I stood there in my tiny kitchen, the notice trembling in my hand, and something inside me went very, very quiet. Not angry, not hurt, just quiet. The way a switch flips off when you've finally had enough. Because this wasn't the first time. This was just the loudest time. Let me tell you how a golden child is made and how the other daughter disappears. Growing up, Brittany was the sun and I was the moon. She got the light, the warmth, the attention. I got the night shift, the quiet, the leftovers. When Brittany wanted piano lessons at age 7, my parents bought a baby grand. When I asked for art classes, my mother said, "We'll see," and never brought it up again. When Brittany made varsity cheer as a freshman, they threw a party with a banner. When I graduated summa cum laude from Portland State, they sent a card. They came to the ceremony, sure, but left early because Brittany had a dance recital the same day. I'm not saying Brittany was cruel. She wasn't a villain in some obvious way. She was just entitled. She moved through life assuming the world would arrange itself around her comfort, and in our family it did. At 27, Brittany married Kunk, a real estate agent who talked big but closed small. 6 months later, they bought a house in West Lynn, a beautiful 4-bedroom craftsman with a view of the Willamette River. Price tag, $680,000. Their combined income, maybe $95,000 on a good year. My mother called it investing in their future. I called it financial suicide, but no one asked me. By the time I got that rent notice, Brittany and Kunke were drowning. Mortgage was $4,200 a month. They'd bought at the peak, and the market had softened. Kunke's commissions had dried up. Brittany worked part-time at a boutique because full-time hours made her anxious. So my parents decided I should cover the gap. They didn't ask. They just sent the notice. Because in their minds, I was the responsible one, the one with the stable job and no husband or kids to spend money on. I was the dependable daughter, the boring one, the one who could afford it. What they didn't know was that I was 3 months away from putting a down payment on my own condo. I'd been saving for 4 years. Every bonus, every raise, every dollar I didn't spend on vacations or new clothes went into that account. I had $63,000 saved. I was so close I could taste it. And now my parents wanted to bleed me dry so Brittany could keep her granite countertops. I sat down at my laptop that night and opened a spreadsheet. I do this when I need to think clearly. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't play favorites. Monthly take-home after taxes and 401k. 700 current rent. 400 new rent. 300 difference. 100 annual cost. $21,600 in 1 year. This rent increase would steal nearly my entire emergency fund. In 2 years, my down payment savings would be gone. I'd be trapped in that garage apartment forever, funding my sister's life while mine evaporated. I closed the laptop. The garage apartment suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I could hear my parents' voices through the thin insulation, laughing at something on TV in their warm, spacious house. The house I helped pay for when I lived here during college, covering groceries and utilities so they could save for retirement. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching car headlights sweep across the room, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg them to see me. I was just going to leave, but I wasn't going to leave quietly. The next morning, I texted my mother, "Got the notice, I'll have to rent it to you first." She replied within seconds. "Thank you, honey, I knew you'd understand. Family helps family." I stared at that heart emoji for a long time. It felt like a knife wrapped in ribbon. That same day, I contacted a real estate agent named Summon. I'd been casually browsing listings for months, but now I was serious. I need to close fast, I told her. I have cash for a down payment. How quickly can we move? Summon was a shark in the best way. If you're flexible on location and ready to make an offer, we can close in 30 days. Do it. We looked at 3 condos that week. The third one was in the Pearl District, a 10th floor unit with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was smaller than I'd imagined my first place would be, but it was mine. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 750 square feet of freedom. Asking price, $285,000. I offered $280,000. They countered at $283,000. I accepted. Closing date, April 28th. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell Brittany. I didn't tell anyone except my best friend Jasmine, who screamed so loud on the phone I had to hold it away from my ear. "You're really doing this?" she asked, half laughing, half shocked. "I'm really doing this. What are you going to tell them?" "Nothing," I said. "Not until I'm gone." The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in secret planning. I started moving things out slowly. A box of books here, a bag of winter clothes there. I told my parents I was donating stuff to Goodwill. They didn't even look up from their phones. I set up mail forwarding to Jasmine's address. I transferred my utilities to the new condo. I hired movers for April 27th, the day before closing, and scheduled them for mid-morning when my parents would be at Brittany's helping her paint the nursery. Yes, Brittany was pregnant now. Another reason they needed my money. I paid April's rent on time. All $3,200 of it. My mother texted, "Received, thank you, sweetie." I didn't respond. On April 26th, I sat down and wrote them a letter. Not an email, a letter. I wanted them to hold it in their hands. "Mom and Dad, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I've closed on a condo in the Pearl District. I'm moving out today. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this to save myself. For 6 years, I've lived in your garage, paying rent, staying close, being the dependable daughter. And in those 6 years, you've made it clear where I stand in this family. Brittany's piano lessons, my will see. Brittany's graduation party, my card in the mail. Brittany's mortgage crisis, my rent increased. I'm not angry. I'm just done. Done being invisible. Done being the backup plan. Done funding a life you think I don't deserve to have. I won't be paying rent anymore. I won't be available for last-minute favors. I won't be the daughter who quietly disappears so Brittany can shine. I hope she's worth it. Your other daughter." I folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and left it on the counter in the garage apartment. Then I walked out, locked the door, and slid the key under their front door mat. The movers arrived at 10 a.m. on April 27th. By noon, the garage apartment was empty except for the furniture that came with it. I stood in the doorway one last time, looking at the space that had been my home for 6 years. I didn't feel sad. I felt light. I closed the door and left. My mother called 14 times that first day. I didn't answer. My father texted, "We need to talk. This is unacceptable." I blocked him. Brittany sent a voice message, her voice shaking. "I don't understand why you're being so selfish. Mom's crying. You're tearing this family apart." I deleted it without finishing. Jasmine came over that night with Thai food and wine. We sat on the floor of my new condo, surrounded by unpacked boxes, and she raised her glass. "To freedom! To freedom!" I echoed, and we drank. My phone buzzed on the counter. Another call from my mother. Jasmine looked at me. "You're not going to talk to them at all." "Not yet," I said. "Let them sit with it." Because here's the thing. I knew exactly what was happening in that house. My mother was panicking because she just lost $3,200 a month in income. My father was angry because I'd made a unilateral decision without consulting the family. And Brittany was confused because, for the first time in her life, I hadn't bent to accommodate her. They expected me to come crawling back, to apologize, to explain myself and beg for understanding. But I was done explaining. I'd spent 29 years explaining why I deserved attention, explaining why I mattered, explaining why my dreams were just as valid as Brittany's. I was tired of explaining. 3 days later, my mother showed up at my office. Security called me at my desk. "Is Karen Westfield here to see you?" My stomach dropped. "Tell her I'm in a meeting." "She says it's an emergency." "Tell her I'll call her later." I didn't call her later. That night she was waiting in the lobby of my condo building. I saw her through the glass doors, sitting on the modern gray couch, clutching her purse like a shield. I thought about turning around, going to Jasmine's, avoiding this, but I walked in. She stood when she saw me. "Sweetheart, don't," I said, cutting her off. My voice was calm, even. "Don't call me that." Her face crumpled. "Please, can we just talk?" I looked at her, really looked at her. At the designer handbag, the fresh highlights in her hair, the manicured nails, all funded by my father's comfortable retirement and apparently my rent money. "What do you want, Mom? I want to understand why you're doing this." "You read the letter." "But it doesn't make sense. We've always supported you." "Support me?" I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped. "You raised my rent by $1,800 overnight to pay for Brittany's mortgage. How is that supporting me? We thought you could afford it." "I can afford it," I said. "That's not the point. The point is you didn't ask. You didn't consider what I wanted. You just assumed I'd sacrifice my future for hers again." She reached for my arm. I stepped back. "You don't get to do this anymore," I said. "You don't get to treat me like a resource, like an ATM, like the backup daughter who exists to make Brittany's life easier." "That's not fair, isn't it?" I asked. "Tell me one time in the last 10 years you put me first. One time." She opened her mouth. I closed it. I opened it again. Nothing came out. "That's what I thought," I said. I turned toward the elevator. "Your father's worried about the mortgage on the rental property," she called after me. "Without your rent, we can't." I stopped. I turned around slowly. "The rental property," I repeated. "You mean the garage apartment? You're calling it a rental property now?" She had the decency to look embarrassed. "Here's the thing, Mom," I said, walking back toward her. "If it's a rental property, you should have a lease, with terms, with legal protections for both parties, but you don't, do you?" "Because it was never a rental property. It was family until you needed money. Then it became a business. We're trying to help Brittany, and I'm trying to help myself," I said. "For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first, and if that makes me selfish, then I'll be selfish, but I won't be invisible anymore." I got in the elevator and watched the doors close on her face. She didn't follow me up. 2 weeks later, Brittany's mortgage went into default. I didn't find this out from my family. I found it out from public records. I check these things for work sometimes, and curiosity got the better of me. They'd missed 2 payments. They were 60 days past due. The bank had sent a notice of default. I should have felt guilty. Part of me waited for the guilt to arrive like a delayed package, but it never came. Instead, I felt something else, clarity, because this was never about me. This was never about my rent money saving them. The house was always doomed. Brittany and Connor bought something they couldn't afford, using credit they didn't have, banking on a future that didn't materialize. My $1,800 a month would have been a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, but my parents couldn't admit that. Admitting that would mean admitting Brittany made a mistake, and Brittany doesn't make mistakes. Brittany makes brave investments and bold choices. I apparently just make rent payments. On June 15th, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Connor. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "About what?" "About helping us. Your parents said you might be willing to co-sign a loan." I laughed out loud in my empty condo. "No," I typed back. "Please, Brittany's 7 months pregnant. We can't lose the house." "You're not losing the house because of me," I wrote. "You're losing it because you bought something you couldn't afford." "That's not my responsibility. We're family." There it was, the magic word, the word that had kept me trapped for years. "Family doesn't weaponize love," I typed. "Families don't raise rent by 130% overnight. A family doesn't treat one daughter like an ATM while treating the other like a princess." "Do you want a family? Build it with people who see you." Block the number. That night I got an email from my father. The subject line was disappointed. I didn't open it. I archived it. 3 months later, Brittany and Connor short-sold the house. They moved into an apartment in Beaverton. My mother posted on Facebook about difficult times and family challenges with a picture of Brittany's baby bump. The comments were full of supportive emojis and "you've got this" messages. No one mentioned me, because to mention me would be to admit I existed. And that would complicate the narrative. I spent those 3 months building my life. I bought furniture, real furniture, not Craigslist finds or hand-me-downs. I hung art on the walls. I hosted a dinner party for Jasmine and 3 coworkers who became real friends. I woke up every morning in my own space, paid for with my own money, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. In September, Brittany had the baby, a girl. My mother texted me a photo with the message, "You have a niece." Her name is Stella. I looked at the photo. A tiny pink face, eyes closed, wrapped in a hospital blanket. Innocent, blameless, I texted back, "She's beautiful, congratulations." My mother replied immediately, "Does this mean you'll come to the baptism?" I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed, "No," because here's what I learned. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. I wish them well. I can hope Brittany figures out how to budget. I hope my parents learn to see their daughters as equals, but I don't have to be there while they do it. I don't have to light myself on fire to keep them warm. 6 months after I moved out, I got promoted to lead data analyst. The raise was $18,000, almost exactly what they wanted me to pay in extra rent for a year. I celebrated by booking a trip to Iceland. Just me. 10 days of hot springs, northern lights, and silence. I posted one photo on Instagram. Me standing in front of a glacier, arms spread wide, face tilted toward the sky. My mother liked it. She didn't comment. That's where we are now, distant, polite, permanent. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd tried harder to make it work, if I feel bad about not being there for Brittany. The answer is no, because you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm and then feel guilty when you finally step away from the flames. You can't pour from an empty cup and then apologize for being thirsty. I spent 29 years being the invisible daughter, the dependable one, the one who sacrificed quietly so others could shine loudly. And then I stopped. Not with a confrontation, not with a dramatic exit, just with a choice. The choice to put myself first, to say no, to leave. My family wanted me to be a supporting character in Brittany's story, but I was always the main character in mine. I just forgot that for a while. Now I remember. And that, more than any revenge, is the real victory. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been the dependable one who gets taken for granted, drop a comment below. Let me know your story, because you're not alone. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Hit that like button if you believe that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. And subscribe for more stories about people who stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. Because the world doesn't need smaller women. It needs women who know their worth.